Chapter 20. My first impression of Brazil was that it looked a lot like America, at least from the inside of the transport terminal. Surprised at the disappointment I felt, I followed the path out behind the operator. It was as I looked around for signs to the next terminal that I noticed all the signs were in both English and Portuguese. A grin spread over my face and I went up to read one.
Não deixe bagagem desacompanhada. Não segure sacos para alguém que você não conhece. Informar qualquer atividade suspeita à segurança.
Do not leave bags unattended. Do not hold bags for anyone you do not know. Report any suspicious activity to security. Tiffany found me staring at a sign that directed people towards bathrooms, food, gift shops, and the building exit. Looking for anything in particular? She asked from behind me. More Portuguese signs. I turned around, smiling like an idiot. Have you seen any? She laughed. I'm pretty sure I saw them everywhere. Come on, you can read them as we go to our next transport. Where is it, by the way? I hadn't gotten that far yet, I admitted. Kept getting distracted. Understandable. She looked around for the terminal board. Oh, hi, Leona. The group of students we'd been talking to earlier were already looking at the listings. Hey, Tiffany. Looks like the transport to São Luís is in Zone B. São Luís. She didn't even attempt to pronounce the city name correctly. Well, we're in Zone E right now, Tiffany told her. Leona nodded. And we've got like 35 minutes to kill. You girls want some coffee? We're all headed over to a shop for a pick-me-up. Tiffany looked at me and I nodded. Sure, she said. We're up for it. Great. The group of 6 looked around. So, do you know where it is? I don't actually speak any Portuguese. I hid a grin. Rosemary said, Sign over there says food's down this main corridor. Awesome, Leona said, and we all headed out together. Not being much of a coffee drinker, I ordered a hot spiced chai tea. Tiffany and 5 of the others ordered various forms of hot or iced coffees, while Rosemary ordered a hot chocolate. So, how'd you end up picking Belém to study abroad at if you don't speak any Portuguese? I asked as we meandered our way to Zone B. Christoph glowered at me. You don't have to know the local language to go somewhere. I was taken aback, but Leona punched her friend in the arm. Don't be such a dick. Christoph crossed his arms. If I'm not, who will be? Tiffany laughed. I could try, but I doubt I'd be very good at it. Everyone laughed at that, though Christoph's looked more like a snarl than an actual smile. No thank you. I don't want to be the cheerleader of the group. I'm not a cheerleader, Tiffany protested. Maybe I used to be one in high school, but I'm not anymore. You said you were in the performing arts, didn't you? I asked her. Can't you just act like a jerk? Tiffany huffed. I'm in dance and musical theater performance, not acting. Oh, so you want to be on Broadway? Asked one of the people whose name I still didn't remember. Tiffany sighed. I wish. I doubt I'm that good. Dream big, I encouraged her. Can't get anywhere if you don't try. Tiffany smiled. We'll see, she said cryptically. The clock read 5:05 when we made it to the seating at our next transport. I did a double take in confusion when I saw it, then remembered I'd just traveled 4 hours ahead. It was just past 1 in the morning back home. When I realized that, I suddenly understood what everyone had been trying to tell me about time zone changes. I'd had an hour or so nap that evening, and now it was suddenly almost dawn. Considering I probably wouldn't make it into bed before 6, I'd either not be getting much sleep that day, or I'd be sleeping half the day away, which would make getting to sleep on time the next night difficult. I took another big sip of my drink, grateful for the caffeine. By the time the transport connected to São Luís, there were 12.5 people waiting at the terminal, almost all of whom were also heading to Belém, as I found out after Tiffany played Social Butterfly some more. That's when I realized I'd completely underestimated the study abroad program. Tina had made it sound like it was just for people at my school, but it turned out it was an international program that my school must have just recently joined. When I looked out the window after making it to São Luís, I noticed the barest hint of light on the horizon. The sun would be up within an hour. I pointed it out to Tiffany and she nodded. The tickets really had been assigned at the latest possible travel time. We didn't have to go to a different zone for the last transport. Instead, the whole group of us just walked halfway down the aisle to a different set of seats. Someone in fancy clothes was already standing there. "Welcome to the Belim Study Abroad program," he said as we all took seats. "Our transport will connect in about 10 minutes. He continued on to explain much of what I already knew. We'd be here for 2 months, after which we'd return to our own schools and finish our studies for the term there. There were no plans for the coming days, so we could sleep and recover from travel as much as we needed. Classes would start on Monday. The cafeteria was open from 5 in the morning to 10 at night, and we could eat any time we wanted between those hours. Since we were just outside the Amazon, standard technology such as cell phones, computers, and electricity were not always reliable. Purely Magicus technology was also sketchy at times, so Magitech devices would work best if we wanted to use electronics. Phones, digital notebooks, and laptop computers could be rented through the school if anyone wanted to use one while they were there. Our magic talents would likely work to some extent at all times, so everyone was expected to behave as adults in regard to their use. Raves were not allowed in dorm rooms. Any illegal drug use or underage drinking would get you sent home immediately. Anyone found sneaking into the Amazon would be sent home immediately and suspended for the remainder of the term. There was no curfew, but if we didn't keep our grades up in our classes, we would be sent home. We did not buy a ticket to a 2-month-long party. We were here for school. Thank you and enjoy your stay in Belim. The transport connected soon after he was done with his speech. We didn't have an assigned order for the final trip, so we just filed in as we wanted. Tiffany and I hung back for a while as the more eager students jostled for a place. We arrived in a large auditorium. Rows of tables were set up along the perimeter of the floor. The first table was sign-in, where we received our student ID tags. We were told to keep them with us at all times, but it was not necessary to actually wear them. Next in line was the room assignments. Surprisingly, we were allowed to choose our own room from what was available. I was handed a map of the women's dorm building while Tiffany checked it out from over my shoulder. There were 4 bedrooms and 1 common area per living arrangement, so we got some privacy at night. As the last group to arrive, the rooms at the front of the building were already filled, but Tiffany spotted a dorm near the middle with 2 vacant beds and suggested we take it. I agreed, grateful beyond words that my traveling companion wanted to actually be friends. There were also a number of booths where you could learn about and sign up for the extracurricular activities they told us about. I eyed the river and museum tours longingly, but I still wasn't sure when I wanted to go on those, and I was past exhausted. Tiffany and I made our way to the dorms together. The sun was beginning to rise, the sky in the east growing lighter. I yawned hugely and checked the time. It's barely been 2 hours since I got on the first transport. Why does it seem so much longer? Well, it is, 2 in the morning back home? Tiffany answered. How much sleep did you get before leaving? Maybe a couple hours. I heard transports are rough on the body. All the dematerializing or whatever happens strains you physically. I'm sure it messes with your head too. And we just did 5 in a row. I nodded. I've done 2 in a row a number of times to visit my parents. I mean, they don't actually live too far away, but 4 hours in a car is a lot longer when you don't have a car. Tiffany laughed. I bet it is. So why don't we go settle in, get some sleep, and wake up sometime late this afternoon? That'll screw up my sleep for a week, I whined. I didn't mean to whine, but I was just too tired to care. Tiffany either didn't notice or also didn't care. Believe me, you'll be ready for sleep again by night. It takes more than 1 night for you to recoup from this kind of travel. We continued in silence the rest of the way, our bags rolling on the paved walkway behind us. The stars began disappearing as the sky lightened. Finally, after what seemed like an hour but was probably only minutes, we arrived at the dorms. We went inside, and I stared at the stairs in front of us. It was a standard number of stairs to go from one floor to another, but it looked like a mountain at that moment. I don't really feel like doing that right now. Can I just sleep here? I feel you, but I don't think they'd like it if we camped out in the entrance. You don't see any elevators, do you? I looked around, but didn't see any signs saying there was a shortcut up. Why did we pick the second floor? I asked as we began our ascent. Because the first floor was full. Oh, right. Next time I take the first transport out, not the last. I glanced over to see Tiffany smiling, but looking just as exhausted as me. Behind us, I heard the door open and another gaggle of girls enter, chittering. For a moment, I wondered how they had enough energy to even talk, but forgot about them as soon as we made it to the top of the stairs. Several doors later, we found our new home for the next 2 months, room 214. Inside, a small kitchenette with a fridge, stove, microwave, coffee pot, and 2 counters composed the back wall of the room. Several chairs sat around a table, and a couch was seated across from a television. Each bedroom door, 2 off each side, was labeled A to D. I had signed up for bedroom C and made a beeline for it without looking around any more than I already had. I called goodnight to Tiffany over my shoulder, closed the door, and collapsed on the bed. I had just enough energy to kick off my shoes, take my meds, and send a text to Aaron that I knew he probably wouldn't read until someone called him, letting him know I made it safely. I barely managed to crawl under the covers before I passed out.